Hello everyone and welcome back to LewisFiction, and in today's video this is the Ben 10 cinematic universe, all three phases put into one movie version. If you did enjoy this series and want to rewatch it, then here is the compilation video for you. However, if you are new around here, make sure you subscribe because we post all types of fanfictions on the channel, mostly Spider-Man, but sometimes we do stuff like Ben 10 and wider Marvel stuff as well. With that being said, make sure to comment down below fanfictions you'd like to see in the future and enjoy the video. This video will focus on the first trilogy, which will be the Road Trip trilogy, and the first film in the franchise will be called Ben 10, plain and simply. So the main cast obviously will be Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max throughout all three films. This first film will actually follow Ben and him getting the Omnitrix, as we do. This first film will mostly be a feel-good movie before Ben starts to really feel the weight of responsibility of the Omnitrix. Essentially, it will be a movie that is really fun, and it's just about him exploring his powers. At this point, Ben is immature, and he doesn't really understand the full extent of what the Omnitrix can do and what is actually out there. His journey will start here, and this trilogy's overarching theme will also be about responsibility and the power that it holds. And another overarching theme throughout all three films will actually be the relationships around him as well, especially with his cousin Gwen. The villain of the first film will be Kevin Levin, because I feel like him being an amalgamation of all of Ben's aliens would be good for the arc of the first film, because it would all come full circle when Ben has to learn how his powers work and what aliens can do what to understand how to beat Kevin Levin. Because if he can understand himself, then he can understand how to beat the main villain, which I think is a perfect story for a film about a kid who is learning his own powers and coming to grips with this new responsibility that he holds. So obviously Kevin Levin will be one of the main characters as well, and his relationship with Ben will also develop throughout this film. His starting 10 aliens for this franchise will be Heat Blast, Forearms, Accelerate, Wildmutt, Upgrade, Cannonball, Diamond Head, Ripjaws, Stinkfly, and Grey Matter. And I know a lot of people will be upset that I left out Ghost Freak, but I think that he's a villain that would need a whole other movie on his own, and I really don't want to go down that route with that character. I know a lot of people's favorite stories in Ben 10 come from the Ghost Freak episodes, but personally, like I said, if you do Ghost Freak, you have to do him justice by having a whole story dedicated to him, and I don't think I really have time for that because there is more stuff that I do want to explore. Anyway, another big focal point for this movie will be Ben and Gwen's relationship, because it will also be explored here too. Over the trilogy, like I said, they'll learn to care for each other just like they do in the actual series. And one major thing that will connect this movie to the rest of the movies is Vilgax will be teased towards the end. The next film will be called Ben 10 Magic Mania. The main cast will be the same as before. They'll be on a road trip, it'll be the same summer. The main villain of the second film, if you couldn't tell by the title, will be Hex. I love Hex and he's one of my favorite Ben 10 villains, but there is also another reason for this as well. As the main theme of this movie is in fact magic, Gwen will also learn to tap into her magic. This is where we will get the first inkling that Grandpa Max knows something that we don't as an audience. He won't be all that surprised that Gwen actually has magic powers, but this will be explored later in the third film. However, Gwen will get magic, and she will be learning to tap into her magic side. Ben's story is that he becomes a little bit cocky with his new powers, and he has to learn to work together with Gwen when he gets jealous that she also has powers too. For a large proportion of the film, Gwen will start to outsmart Ben, as she is a lot smarter tactically in terms of defeating Hex. Ben has mastered his powers, but now he has to learn to work as a team with Gwen to defeat Hex. Ben will also unlock two new aliens in this film, which will be Wildvine and Upchuck. I personally love Upchuck, so don't get mad that I used him here. But anyway, moving on to the third film in the trilogy, it will be called Ben 10 Final Drive. Getting towards the end of the summer, they will have enjoyed their adventures. Vilgax is coming though. This film will be about Grandpa Max pretty much revealing everything he knows, and as the audience we learn about his plumber days. This then ties into the villain Vilgax, who Max will have history with. Max will also explain to Gwen and the backstory behind her powers and how her grandmother was a magical being from another planet, which is actually why Gwen has powers. Max will also tell Ben and Gwen about the Null Void, which is the place where they'd send the villains to after they were done with them as plumbers. However, there will be this looming threat over Max and he will lose sleep over it. He knows that Vilgax is coming, and he knows that Vilgax will be coming after the Omnitrix. However, this film will also tap into that feel-good factor of the first film once again, as they will be on their final days of the road trip, going around stopping aliens and stopping villains. They will use an old piece of plumber tech to send the villains to the Null Void, expanding upon that. The first half of the movie will be fun, with a stomach-churning threat on the horizon. The film will conclude with Max regretting to inform Ben that Vilgax is coming, and he can't be ready for it. Ben's cockiness will proceed and the battle will rage on. Ben wasn't ready, neither was Gwen, as they both are defeated when Vilgax does in fact arrive. While Ben is having the Omnitrix removed, Max will tell Ben that he tried to train him for this moment, but it was too late. And he will reveal in the last half of the film that the Omnitrix was actually meant for him and not Ben, for if Vilgax were to ever return, but Max didn't think he could hold the responsibility of knowing this information until now. During the final battle, Max will gain control over the Omnitrix and will fight Vilgax in the final fight. Vilgax will be defeated, but Grandpa Max will unfortunately die in this battle, and the Omnitrix will become vacant. Now, I know what a lot of you guys are saying. If someone has the Omnitrix, they actually can't die because the Omnitrix will prevent them from dying, either by them becoming a different alien, which can prevent their death, or just something along those lines. However, I'm going to make it, for story reasons, that this is not the case in this trilogy, or in this franchise, should I say, because I think it kind of takes away from the stakes that our main character can't actually be touched. And I'm going to go away from the Ben 10 lore here, but I'm going to remove this feature from the Omnitrix, meaning that God mode just does not exist. You can die while you have the Omnitrix if you get severely hurt enough. It doesn't devalue the Omnitrix's power, however, because it is still extremely powerful, and we will still explore the lore of the Omnitrix in future films. This change is purely from a writing standpoint, and hopefully you guys can understand why I made it. Anyway, after weeks of mourning, Ben has the Omnitrix stored away, since he never actually put it back on after the final battle. Vilgax will have been sent to the Null Void, and everything will have settled down. The final scene of the film will be between Ben and Gwen, with Ben contemplating putting it back on. Gwen will ask if he'll wear it again, but Ben says no, because he can't risk to lose anyone else, meaning that Ben and Gwen's relationship comes full circle and ties up the trilogy nicely. The first film in this phase will be called Ben 10 Knights Forever. So this film will start off with Ben 10 as a teenager. Obviously, he has long forgotten about the Omnitrix. And obviously, at the end of the last trilogy, the Omnitrix was detached from Ben, and he's kept it away ever since. He still hangs out with Gwen, and he's got a few new friends. Essentially, he's doing alright. He's got girl troubles, and it's essentially more of a Peter Parker-esque story at this point in time. Obviously, the character is very different. He's a lot more mature, but he still has that chip on his shoulder. He's still the Ben 10 that we know and love from the other trilogy. Unlike Ben, Gwen is actually still using her powers. She will be using her magic and nurturing it. And by the end of the trilogy, she will be more powerful than ever. The story will kick off when Gwen is actually captured by the villains of this film, who will be the Forever Knights. And essentially, the Forever Knights will be introduced as these people, this group that are devoted to securing the Omnitrix for its power. And obviously, Enoch will be the leader. This is also how we meet Kevin Levin once again. As we do know, Kevin is a massive part of the Alien Force franchise and Ultimate Alien going forward. He's actually one of Ben and Gwen's allies throughout the series. Essentially, how Kevin gets roped into this is that he had a mixture of Ben's powers come the end of the first film in the first trilogy, and essentially the Forever Knights captured him right after he was defeated by Ben in the first film. Enoch would think that a way of harnessing the Omnitrix's power without actually getting their hands on the Omnitrix, because they saw Ben as such a threat, would actually be to harness the power from Kevin Levin. But once learning that Ben had removed the Omnitrix, they decided to capture Gwen to draw Ben out. In the Forever Knights base, Gwen will actually meet a mature and reformed Kevin Levin, whose powers are that of absorption due to the tinkering of the Forever Knights. Essentially, over the last 5 years, Kevin will have become a good guy, and now a big part of his character will be the trauma that he suffered throughout the 5 years or so that he spent at the facilities. Essentially, the Forever Knights will have been experimenting on Kevin throughout the past 5 years, trying to harness the powers of the Omnitrix. And due to this experimentation, Kevin will have regressed back to his human form. However, he will still have absorption powers. Gwen will take pity on Kevin and will grow a liking to him. We get a hint at their potential relationship as well in this film. The story with Ben will actually follow an internal battle where he decides to put the watch back on and save the day. When Ben puts the watch back on, it won't change like it did in the show, but in fact will stay the same with all of his original aliens. In the first battle, when he goes to rescue Gwen between Enoch and Ben, Enoch will temporarily beat Ben and capture him. Enoch will place Ben in a dream world, the same way that they did in the OG show. Ben will relive Grandpa Max's death over and over again. Enoch will try and remove the Omnitrix from Ben. This tinkering with the Omnitrix is actually what transforms it into the Alien Force version of the watch that we know from the show, giving Ben 10 brand new aliens. Gwen and Kevin will work together to escape and save Ben. Although reluctant at first, Ben will team up with Kevin along with Gwen to defeat Enoch and the Forever Knights and escape the facility. Moving on to the next film, we move on to Ben 10 Light and Dark. This film will follow the three protagonists as they get to know each other. A year will have passed since the first film, and Ben and Gwen will be 16 and Kevin will be 17 years old. In a short montage catching us up, we will get to see the relationships improve between Ben and Kevin. However, Ben is still pretty wary and still doesn't fully trust him. This film will also have a heavy theme of love throughout, as Gwen and Kevin will be hinting on that relationship. However, the obstacle for them will be Michael Morningstar, who will be the villain of the film. Instead of adapting this villain's motifs like I've done previously, Michael will actually be ripped straight from the source material. He will be a kid of an ex-plumber, which is how he will get to know the main three protagonists, although they meet throughout high school. Michael has powers which will require him to drain the life force of other people. As a charming and charismatic guy, he will charm girls from his high school before turning them into zombies and draining them of their life force. Sensing that Gwen has way more power than he's ever seen before because of her magic powers, she becomes his next target. As Gwen falls for his charm, this will put a rift between her and Kevin. Whilst also being slightly naive and not fully trusting Kevin, Ben is a lot more relaxed with Gwen and Michael becoming an item, because of how trustworthy Michael seems on the surface. Which leads perfectly into Kevin's arc in this film, which is him being determined to prove that he is reformed. The movie will eventually culminate when Ben and Kevin have to team up to save Gwen from Darkstar. Ben will apologize to Kevin for not fully trusting of him, and their relationship will improve from there. By the end of the second movie, those three and their relationships with each other will be stronger than ever. Since the theme of this film is love and relationships, I'd also like to set up a relationship between Ben and the Omnitrix. As weird as that may sound, let me explain. The Omnitrix is a living, breathing thing. It's almost like an actual character. It's the most powerful and intelligent device in the universe, and coming towards the halfway point of the universe's overarching story, I do believe that we need to start delving more into the wacky side of the Ben 10 lore. The Watch and Ben will have this on and off relationship where Ben at first is annoyed that the Watch's new features were unlocked, and has to get to grips with using the new aliens, since all the old ones are now gone. The Watch will still transform him into the wrong aliens just like in the OG trilogy, and at the worst of times as well, and there will be an unhealthy connection forming between him and the Watch. The Omnitrix will almost become its own character during this film, as I mentioned. Eventually, Ben will figure out that the Watch only has Ben's best intentions in mind, and always transforms him into the alien that he currently needs, not the one that Ben thinks he needs. This would also parallel how Kevin only has Gwen's best interest at heart too. The end of the film and the post-credit scene would tease the beginning of the end. A strange orange ring would appear around the Omnitrix's rim. And that takes us to the final film in the second phase, which will be Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix. Now, one of my favourite Ben 10 storylines is from the Ben 10 original series, which was Secret of the Omnitrix, which, if you don't know, was Ben 10's first feature film. However, I'm going to be adapting that storyline here in a very interesting way. I'm going to be giving this storyline to an older Ben because I think this story works quite well at the end of this trilogy. This film would follow the Secret of the Omnitrix story where it started to self-destruct. It turns out that when Enoch tinkered with the Omnitrix, it also unlocked its self-destruct sequence. This sequence had been ticking down to its final stages in the last few weeks, and now it's down to its last few days. This film will test Ben's knowledge, maturity, and emotional capabilities. This will be the darkest Ben 10 film out of them all. Like the actual Secret of the Omnitrix animated film, the more that Ben uses aliens, the more it accelerates the destruction. Ben has to use his powers sparingly, relying only on his human form and his own intelligence to get him out of certain situations, which could also reflect his character growth throughout the two trilogies, as Ben has grown to be more tactical and a better character for it. However, when it comes to the actual physical fighting, Gwen and Kevin will do most of the battling and heavy lifting in this film. The main villain of the film will also be Albedo, who claims to be the assistant of the creator of the Omnitrix, Azimuth. The signal created by the Omnitrix when it entered self-destruct mode alerted Albedo, who has been on a galaxy-wide exploration for the Omnitrix ever since its creation. Albedo will disguise himself as being good, and says he's willing to take Ben to Azimuth to get the Omnitrix removed and reset. However, when the gang falls into Albedo's trap, Albedo threatens to kill Gwen and Kevin if Ben doesn't do what he says. Ben transforms and escapes from Albedo with Gwen and Kevin. The three make it to Azimuth by themselves just in time. Azimuth ends up helping Ben and resets the Omnitrix. However, Albedo is back and ready to take the Omnitrix by force. The final battle ensues, where Azimuth unlocks a few new aliens for Ben to use against him. The film ends with them all being successful. However, before leaving Xenon, Azimuth will also hint to Ben that he can unlock Master Control, but that is for another day. So the first film in the new trilogy is going to be called Ben 10 The Rise of Animo. And this will be a simple film reintroducing us to the characters, reintroducing us to this new world. Ben is currently struggling with his on and off relationship with Julie, a girl that he met in high school. He is currently 21 years old at the start of this trilogy, so he's not currently at the Ben 10,000 level just yet, but he's getting there. He has access to around 100 aliens or so, including all the original aliens from the OG trilogy, and also will have access to all of his Alien Force aliens and brand new ones as well. And a big theme of this film in particular will be the fact that he's trying to figure out the Master Control. Kevin and Gwen are currently married, which will reflect how Ben can't seem to move on from the hero stuff. They are trying to settle down, they are trying to start a family, they are just trying to be together, because they're past all of the hero stuff that they did in their teen years. Ben, however, is obsessed with keeping the world safe, and Gwen says that he needs a day off. Ben says that he can't. And then when Ben does eventually take his eye off the ball, and Gwen and Kevin will convince him to take a day off, Dr. Animo will rise to power, who will be the main villain of this film. Ben, however, will eventually defeat Dr. Animo and will save the day. By the end, Ben figures out how to unlock the Master Control and uses it to its full advantage, showing how Ben is regressing as a character because he knows that he can't stop at nothing until the world is completely safe. And this leads us really well into our next film, which is Ben 10, Into the Null Void. 1 year has passed, and after sending Dr. Animo to the Null Void at the end of the last film, something is happening. All the villains that he has sent over there over the last couple of years have been scheming together inside the Null Void to take Ben down and take him out. On the more personal side of things, Gwen and Kevin will also announce that they are having a baby together. So this will further reflect how Ben just isn't going down that family route, just isn't going down that route of wanting to settle down, wanting to grow up. He wants to save the world, he wants to keep the world safe, and it's an obsession. Some of the villains from Ben's past are slipping back into reality somehow, and Ben doesn't know how, but something big is coming, he knows that. After regressing back to his obsessed hero state after defeating Animo, his relationship with Julie will reach a breaking point. A big part of this film will show us why they love each other and will showcase their relationship, but Ben is obsessed. A part of his obsession comes from what happened during the Alien Force era, and a big part of it still comes from Grandpa Max's death. Either way, Ben knows something is coming, and he can't stop at nothing until it's stopped. Julie can't accept this and says that it's quits forever. She loves Ben, but she can't keep doing this. She can't keep going back and forth with Ben risking his life and not willing to settle down. This puts Ben in a dark place. He's all alone. Gwen and Kevin are starting a family, and no one really seems to understand the implications of what is happening. Ben tries to contact them, both saying that something big is coming, but they don't listen to him. They just think he's obsessed. They just think he's paranoid. The main instigator of all of this will be the main villain, which will be Charmcaster, who in this canon will actually be Hex's daughter. Charmcaster grew up without a father since Ben sent him away 12 years ago. Charmcaster will seek revenge on Ben. She does this by studying the magic of her father and finding a way to break into the Null Void to rescue him, which is where he lay. What she doesn't know, however, is that there are far worse consequences coming. Her character will parallel Ben's in that she is all alone and she's just trying to break the Null Void to get her father back, because she's been alone since she was a child. And obviously she grew up without her mother as well. However, we will get some hints that there is good in Charmcaster, that she isn't all evil and she just wants to do this because she feels alone, which is completely relatable. After Ben finds the root of the problem, which will be Charmcaster, they will end up fighting. And in the final battle of the film, the power exploited blows a hole in reality, collapsing realities and universes together, which will take us nicely into the final film, which will be called Ben 10 Negative Force. This will be the culmination, this will be everything that ties the whole cinematic universe together. Our Ben is now on the brink of a breakdown. He's been through so much and it's almost collapsing in front of him. In a massive battle opening sequence, Gwen and Kevin will come back to help Ben, saying that they were wrong all this time and they are apologizing for it. Loads of aliens and villains are swarming the Earth. Reality itself is collapsing in on itself. Ben doesn't know what to do, until a battle with Charmcaster sucks him into the Null Void, leaving Gwen and Kevin to battle the rest of the aliens on Earth. This film will put Ben to the final test, as the main villains of this film will be the Negative 10, who will form in the Null Void. Like I said, they have been scheming in the Null Void, and it's finally come down to this. The Negative 10 will consist of Charmcaster, Hex, Albedo, Dr. Animo, Enoch, Darkstar, and of course Vilgax, with two minions he'd formed an alliance with in the Null Void, Crab and 66, who, if you guys don't know, work under Vilgax in the original series. Ben fights his way through the Null Void to try and escape and restore reality, but not without help, because when it all seems lost, Ben encounters other versions of himself. younger Ben from the OG trilogy, and Alien Force Ben from the second trilogy as well. They are from different and alternating universes where the timelines are slightly different. So we get to see all 3 versions of Ben on screen at the same time. Not only them, but we will also get a younger Gwen as well, and Grandpa Max from the original trilogy too, as they got sucked into the Null Void along with younger Ben. And we will also get Kevin Levin from the Alien Force days as well, who will have been sucked in the Null Void with the Alien Force version of Ben. We've got a different version of all of the main players from all of the 3 trilogies. We have a Kevin, we have a Gwen, we also have a Grandpa Max. But most importantly, we have all 3 Bens on screen together at the same time. There will also be a nice moment with Ben and Grandpa Max as they reminisce. Max figures that he's dead from the universe of the older Ben because of how Ben reacts. Ben doesn't say much, but is just happy to see him. Ben feeling alone is almost reversed and restored. It gives him the fight inside to carry on with the team around him, to see Grandpa Max again, to see Gwen show up, to see other versions of himself, and to see Kevin from the Alien Force days. It gives him that fight to fight his way out of the Null Void, and the team do just that. They will go up against the -10 all together. Ben and Vilgax will also have one final brawl together too, with the 2 going up against each other as Ben wants to enact his revenge for what he did to Max. It will be a fair match too. Vilgax will have reinstated and upgraded his arsenal since his time in the Null Void. And obviously we know, because we followed Ben throughout the years, that he's gotten way more powerful, way more mature, and way more aliens too. So they will go up against each other, but Ben will obviously come out on top, almost killing Vilgax, until Grandpa Max tells him not to do that. Revenge is not the way. But it's a nice moment, because everything comes full circle. Throughout the story, however, Charmcaster will start to regret her decision to try and bring her father back as she realizes what a bad man he actually is. Charmcaster will have hints of sympathy in her, and in the final moments of the film, when it seems like they won't be able to restore reality to how it was, she switches sides and helps them defeat the -10. After realizing what she did was wrong, she uses her magic to restore reality. But just before everything is done and everyone goes home, she gives younger Gwen a spellbook so she can learn and expand on her own magic abilities. Everything returns back to normal, with the universes and reality being restored. Each Ben goes back to their respective universes, along with Gwen, Grandpa Max, and Kevin Levin. After realizing that having people around you to help you and be there for you is for the best, Ben decides to resurrect his relationship with Julie and decides to finally have a family and settle down. They eventually will get married, and Ben lives happily ever after. That is it for the Ben 10 Cinematic Universe. That's Phase 3, so that's all phases done. I will be going back to Spider-Man videos on the Thursday from now on. Maybe some other videos here and there, I'm not so sure of at the moment. But if you guys did enjoy this series, make sure to hit a like on it, and also make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the bell so you do not miss another video as soon as it comes out on the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, and peace.